Yeah, hi, very good evening. So this live session again will have one virtual classroom session. So as such, we're not having any textbook discussion today. So we'll have a brief discussion on the following topic, epithelium from oral embryology. So today I've chosen oral embryology. We'll try to cover all important aspects pertaining to epithelium, their origin, function, and most importantly, in brief about non-keratinocytes, and also the classification of different types of epithelium and where they're present, the location, right? So we'll try to cover these aspects today, okay? Oh, very good evening once again all of you. So first of all, what is epithelium? So it's very basic. Epithelium, epi upon, isn't it? So it's a basic covering on a surface, or it can be an external surface like skin, or it can be internal cavities, even internal cavities. It can be peritoneal cavity, pericardial cavity, pleural cavity, or it can be even the lining of blood vessels. So we have epithelium all over, and the origin of epithelium is very important. We often just assume that epithelium has its origin only from ectoderm, but in fact epithelium has origin from ectoderm, endo, as well as mesoderm. The best examples: ectoderm, skin, and the epithelial lining of alimentary tract is having its origin from endoderm, whereas the epithelia covering your blood vessels, that is your endothelium, has its origin from mesoderm. So this is very, very important. You can just make a note of it. As yesterday, after completion of this session, I'll just take a pic. I'll add up some filter to it so that it looks better, and I'll share it in group as well as WhatsApp update, Google group as well as WhatsApp update group, right? So as you all know, the basic functions of epithelium, that's very basic, I'm sure you're all familiar with. It helps in protection, secretion, various other actions. Coming to rate of renewal, this is very important. You can just make a note of this. In fact, epithelium has different layers. It can be keratinized or non-keratinized. So we have basic layers like we have stratum basale, and then first you have your basal layer of cells, on top of which you'll have your stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, and then stratum corneum if it is keratinized. So I'm not asking you these questions, but since you are already familiar with all these things, right? So the basal layer is very much active, where active division of cells do take place. In fact, the entire epithelial layers, they get replenished, they get renewed with time, and the rate of renewal depends upon the location of epithelium, which is very, very important. As you can see here, if it is buccal mucosa, the rate of renewal is 10 to 14 days. It means for every 1 to 2 weeks, there is renewal or formation of new cells from your basal layer. However, in case of junctional epithelium, gingival junctional epithelium, the rate of renewal is just 4 to 6 days. So it depends upon the location of that epithelium, right? You can just make a note of these points. So rate of renewal, buccal mucosa is 10 to 14 days, and junctional epithelium, it is around 4 to 6 days, right? And also, as we discussed previously, the origin, it's not just from ectoderm, but also from endoderm as well as mesoderm, and few examples, right? And of all the mucosal cells, if you observe oral mucosa, you find keratinocytes as well as non-keratinocytes, and non-keratinocytes occupy 10% of all the mucosal cells as per your textbook. Now, we have various non-keratinocytes such as Langerhans cells, Merkel cells, and your melanocytes. Now, let me ask you a question. So, which type of cell has a typical tennis racket appearing organelle? Every cell has organelles in it, right? So which of the following has a characteristic tennis racket shaped organelle? Is it Langerhans, Merkel's, melanocytes, or keratinocytes? Tennis racket. Something like this. You have a handle, and then you have an elongated structure similar to your racket, tennis racket. So tennis racket shaped organelle are characteristically found in which of the following cells? Histiocytes, by Regina. Abhishek, you say Merkel cells. Langerhans. So we have all the options covered there. So which is accurate? Yeah. I'm not sure how it's going to be, but let me just present in my mobile. I'll just show you a schematic illustration of a cell which shows tennis racket appearance. Yes, I think it's clear. Right. So let me just zoom in. You can see here tennis racket appearance, where you can see a handle and also an elongated head, isn't it? So tennis racket organelle. These are characteristically found in case of your Langerhans cells. Langerhans cells which process antigenic material. They have something to do with your immunity, right? And these Langerhans cells contain characteristically tennis racket shaped organelle. And as I said, these Langerhans cells, they process antigens, and hence, can you name like which layer are these cells present? I mean, we have different layers in your epithelium, right? The epidermis, we have basal, spinosum, granulosum, corneum. So in which layer do you find these Langerhans cells? That's another question again. Hi, very good evening. Yes, as most of you rightly answered, it's Langerhans cells. So in which layer do you find these Langerhans cells? Good. Stratum basal or your basal layer mainly contains your melanocytes as well as Merkel cells, whereas Langerhans cells are present in stratum spinosum. Just make a note of that point. I haven't mentioned that here. You just make a note. So Langerhans cells are present in stratum spinosum because as a result, I mean, usually we assume they are present in basal layer, but they are strategically placed in your spinosal layer so that they are in close proximity to your bacteria and other foreign substances. I mean, they are in close proximity to the surface, right? So they have that importance. I mean, their location is very important. So that's in brief about Langerhans cells, antigen processing cells. And also, these Langerhans cells lack desmosomes and tonofilaments. Now, another question. Can you tell me the function of desmosome? We have desmosomes, hemidesmosomes. You might have heard of these terms. So, what are these about? So, what are desmosomes and hemidesmosomes? Try answering it. Good, Regina. Yes, they do not have desmosomes and tonofilaments. Yes. So desmosomes, intercellular attachments or desmosomes, whereas hemidesmosomes help in attaching a cell to the basal lamina. We have basal lamina on top of which you have your basal layer of cells. So hemidesmosomes help in attaching the cells to your basal lamina, whereas desmosomes help in intercellular adhesion. And these desmosomes are absent in case of your Langerhans cells. Now, so that's in brief about Langerhans. Coming to Merkel cells. So where are Merkel cells present? As we discussed, Merkel cells are present in basal layer. And what is the function of Merkel cells? Yes, I'm sorry, right. So each cell attach themselves by desmosomes, good. Adhesion between cells. So what is the function of these Merkel cells? Good. Sensory. So Merkel cells act as touch receptors. They are present in stratum basal layer. Merkel cells act as touch receptors. So you can just make a note or add that point here, right? Yeah. Now, coming to next, melanocytes. So melanocytes, as you all know, they produce or they contain melanin pigment. So even these melanocytes are present in basal layer. And the uniqueness is similar to Langerhans cells, even melanocytes lack your desmosomes and tonofilaments. And these have the capacity to inject melanin pigment into adjacent keratinocytes. These are non-keratinocytes, right? So they can inject melanin pigment into adjacent keratinocytes, and this is injection. This is via injection technique. So that's been mentioned in your textbook. So this is in brief about your melanocytes present in basal layer which contain melanin pigment. I'll just show you an image of a melanocyte. Yeah, you can just have a look. So these are your Merkel cells. So Merkel cells, I hope you can see. Let me just zoom in. Right, so this is your Merkel cell, which is closely associated with your nerve fibers or your axon terminals. If you observe here carefully, these are your nerve terminals, axon terminals. So these Merkel cells are closely associated with your axon terminals, right? Unlike your other cells. So these act as touch receptors, and then these are your melanocytes. You can see dark in color, that's melanin pigment. Okay? Yeah. So once you have a look, you can easily register in your brain, isn't it? So these are different types of non-keratinocytes which I wanted to focus here. Inject pigment into other keratinocytes, because majority of cells which you find here are keratinocytes. These constitute only 10% of all cells, all mucosal cells, right? Yeah. So that's in brief about your non-keratinocytes. Now, moving on to, yes, we have a classification here, right? So classification of these epithelial cells based on their shape, based on their arrangement, whether they are arranged in single layer or whether they are arranged in multiple layers. Or we even have something called as hybrid, that is nothing but a pseudo stratified. So if they are arranged in single layer, we call them as simple. They are arranged in multiple layers, stratified or layer, or if we have a third combination, that is pseudo stratified. So I've just put a picture of a schematic representation of a pseudo stratified epithelium here. Usually, in case of simple epithelium, you have a single layer of cells, all cells lying on your basal lamina, and all cells which are exposed to external environment. So single layer of cells. In case of your stratified layer, only the basal layer of cells are in contact with your basal lamina, and the rest of your cells are not in contact with your basal lamina. That's clear. But in case of pseudo stratified, all the cells are in contact with your basal lamina, but few cells do not reach the top surface. As you can see here, all cells more or less they have contact with your basal lamina, but few cells, as you can see here, these few cells are not coming to the surface. So this gives us a false appearance of multiple layers. I mean, I'm sure you know what is pseudo stratified. Pseudo means false, stratified means multiple layer. In fact, it's not multiple layer, but it gives a false appearance of multiple layer of cells because of this arrangement, because of different levels of arrangement of nuclei. But in fact, it's a single layer, and not all cells reach the surface. So that's one important point which you can make a note of, right? Yes. Now, coming to various classifications in brief, I mentioned here an entire classification. So we have in simple, squamous, cuboidal, columnar, and pseudo stratified. So even pseudo stratified comes under simple, right? So as you can see, in squamous we have endothelial layer as well as mesothelial layer. So endothelial layer, the shape of the cells is spindle shaped, right? And these are predominantly present covering your heart, blood vessels and lymph vessels. You know about endothelial lining, right? So we have discussed in pathology or elsewhere. So endothelial lining, spindle shape, present in heart, blood and lymph vessels. You can just make a note of these areas where a specific epithelium is present. Now come to mesothelium. They are oval to polygonal in shape and they are present lining your pleural cavities, peritoneal cavities and pericardial cavities. So all cavities, mesothelium, right? And you have your cuboidal cells, cube shape. They contain cilia. So cilia are nothing but finger-like projections which help in driving mucus or dirt. For example, you have your ciliated columnar epithelium lining your respiratory tract, helps in clearing your dirt as well as mucus, isn't it? So characteristics, we have cilia in case of cuboidal cells, which can be present lining your kidney, various glands, various secretory areas like glands, including your respiratory passages. And then you have your columnar cells, columnar rod shaped, simple to remember. They contain cilia and microvilli. Microvilli are nothing but extensions of your cytoplasmic membrane, which increase the surface area without increasing the volume of cell, which is very important. So these microvilli help in increasing the rate of diffusion, right? Hence, these are present in your respiratory passages also. So microvilli, they are projections of your cell membranes. They increase surface area without increasing the volume. So that's the advantage we have with microvilli. And also we have cilia attached to columnar cells present in secretory organs similar to that of previous one like glands, small intestine as well as respiratory passages. And finally we have pseudo stratified in simple epithelium which are rod-like, as you can see there. Rod-like but much more flattened. Columnar are in fact rod-like, but pseudo stratified are rod-like and flattened to some extent. They contain cilia and stereocilia. Stereocilia are nothing but mechanosensing cilia which respond to movements of fluid, usually present in your ear. Because of fluid movement, there can be stimulation of this cilia and they respond to various movements of fluid, right? Stereocilia. So they are present lining your respiratory passages. You have this ciliated columnar, pseudo-stratified epithelium, pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar epithelium, right? Lining your respiratory tract. And also male reproductive organs, right? So that's in brief about the pseudo-stratified epithelium. And finally, we have your stratified epithelium, squamous, columnar, and your transitional epithelium, which changes the shape. When there is a stretching or when there is pressure, there can be change in shape. We'll discuss that in brief now. So squamous epithelia, stratified, numerous layers, polyhedral in shape. They characteristically contain intercellular bridges, as we have been discussing about desmosomes and hemidesmosomes. So these are present lining your entire body or mouth, pharynx and vagina. So mostly covering all external parts is the squamous epithelium. And then you have a columnar epithelia, which can be like you can have columnar cells on top of columnar cells, or you can have cuboidal cells at base followed by columnar cells, since it is a stratified layer, lining your oropharynx and larynx. And finally, transitional epithelium, cube to pear shape. There is distension leading to flattening. So whenever there is fluid accumulation, as in case of your bladder, because of distension, there can be flattening of cells. There is no metaplasia here. Please remember, there is no change in shape, but only distension causes flattening of cells. That's it. So distension leading to flattening. Example, they are present lining your urinary passages as well as bladder. I hope you can see, right? Yeah. So distension leading to flattening, but there is no change in shape, urinary passages and bladder. Very simple, right? But the thing is, we need to have notes so that we can recollect. It takes around, it took around 45 minutes to 1 hour for me to prepare this entire notes. But once you have this notes ready-made, you can complete out this topic in maximum of 5 to 10 minutes, right? So that's the advantage you have with a customized notes. So this is in brief about epithelia, which I wanted to discuss today. So we'll wait for 2 minutes and then I'll once again summarize all that we have discussed so far, right? I hope it's clear. Yes, Abhishek, we crossed 11,000 subscribers. Previously, it was like, see, to add up 100 subscribers, it used to take some 15 or 20 days. So when it was like 500,000 subscribers, it used to be like a great achievement. But now the frequency has increased to, such an effect that we're having around 1500 to 2000 new subscribers on an average every month. So that's really exciting, and it even increases my responsibility in the process. So previously it was fun, but now it's more of fun and more responsibility on shoulders. So I have to be extra careful while taking classes, trying to commit minimum errors. I can't really omit or avoid mistakes, but I'm trying to avoid them as much as possible. Yeah, congratulations everyone. We made it, and we still have a long way to go. It doesn't end with your PG entrance. You still are going to do PG, you're going to be in touch with me, and we're going to make it much more extensive. And thank you for calling this a family. Thank you for your trust, lady. Yeah. Yes. So we'll just try to summarize in 2 to 5 minutes, real fast, and then we'll conclude. Okay. So it's been just 27 minutes. I'm feeling more excited nowadays because we're trying to complete our live sessions in a minimum time possible, and you should be talking about quality. So I'm looking into quality as well as quantity. So I'm giving from my side. So how your reception is. It depends on your perception. Anyways, thank you so much for making this happen and for your complete cooperation on this. So we'll just go through the summary. Epithelium, as you all know, epithelium is nothing but a surface protective layer. Epithelium, epi, upon. So basically we have this epithelium covering your external parts, internal organs, internal cavities, everywhere, anywhere in your body, which has origin not only from ectoderm but also from endoderm as well as mesoderm. Few examples: ectoderm, skin; endoderm, alimentary tract; your mesoderm, your endothelial cells lining your blood vessels or lymphatic system. So we have a rate of renewal. We have different layers in your epithelium: basal, spinosum, granulosum, cornea. And I have one question here. Actually, I wanted to discuss that. Gingiva, is it parakeratinized or orthokeratinized or keratinized or non-keratinized? 4 options. We had this question previously in comment in several other exams also. Gingiva is keratinized, non-keratinized, parakeratinized, orthokeratinized. Glad to hear that, Prithvi. Yes. And thank you all for your wonderful wishes. Non-keratinized? Gingiva, seriously? Gingiva comes under masticatory mucosa, right? Hard palate and gingiva. Of course it is keratinized. I've given you the option non-keratinized for sake of completion. Except for your interdental papilla or caul. Caul is non-keratinized except for that. Rest of your gingiva is keratinized. Now the question is it parakeratinized or orthokeratinized? Yeah. So I have referred few books. I referred James Cavery, also embryology. It's mentioned that free gingiva, you have your marginal gingiva and free gingiva. Free gingiva is parakeratinized, whereas attached gingiva is orthokeratinized. And what is the difference between parakeratinized and orthokeratinized? Yes, Havila, Neetu. Exactly, Abhishek, yes. Free gingiva, I mean, it's mentioned that the logic there is any attached surface is orthokeratinized, and any surface which is free, which is not attached, like your free gingiva, it's parakeratinized. Good. So that's, I just wanted to discuss that point also. Anyways, now moving to rate of renewal, as we have been discussing, the basal layer of cells are highly metabolically active. There is rapid mitosis, rapid rate of renewal, and depending upon the location of the epithelium, we have different rates of renewal. Rates of renewal in case of your buccal mucocytes around 10 to 14 days. In case of junctional epithelium, it's much more rapid, 4 to 6 days. And we discussed in brief about non-keratinocytes. I've also shown you some illustrations. So non-keratinocytes, we have Langerhans cells, Merkel cells, and melanocytes. Langerhans cells, tennis racket-shaped organelle, Langerhans, and also these are found in stratum spinosum. They process antigenic material and present them to your T lymphocytes. And then you have your Merkel cells. Merkel cells are present in your basal layer. They're associated with your axon nerve terminals, and they act as sensory receptors or touch receptors, as you're familiar with. And then you have your melanocytes, melanin pigment, basal layer. They inject melanin into adjacent keratinocytes. And apart from these non-keratinocytes, we even have lymphocytes, monocytes, and other cells of blood, right? So these are some of the non-keratinocytes, right? So tennis racket appearance, organelle in case of Langerhans cells. And briefly, we've gone through the classification, right? So we have simple and stratified. So simple, single layer, stratified, multiple layer, pseudo stratified, false appearance of stratification, but it's in fact a single layer with all the cells staying in touch or contact with the basal layer, but not all cells reach the surface in case of your pseudo stratified. That's very important, right? So we have various shapes of cells, which is quite simple to remember. So these are some of the characteristics which I wanted to focus. Cuboidal cells have cilia, columnar cells have cilia as well as microvilli. Pseudo-stratified cells have cilia as well as stereocilia. Cilia are nothing but your projections on the surface of a cell which help in clearing away mucus or dirt or bacteria. Whereas microvilli are extensions of your cytoplasmic membrane which increase surface area without increasing the volume, thereby helping in greater rates of diffusion, found lining your respiratory tracts and various organs secreting various substances. And then we have stratified layers, squamous, columnar, and transitional. So transitional, there is no change in shape of cell, distension leading to flattening of cells, which is very important. So we have transitional epithelium lining your urinary passages and bladder. And rest of the examples, you can just remember, wherever you have cilia, microvilli, or stereocilia, these usually cover or line your glands or your respiratory passages. That's one simple basic logic, right? So endothelium, you're familiar, lining your blood vessels and lymph vessels. Mesothelia, all cavities like peritoneal, pericardial, pleural cavities. And rest of the cells were discussed in brief, right? So this covers our today's topic, right? So if you have any further questions, drop them at proudtobeDentist@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed this session, and we'll come up with more and more sessions on similar formats, right? Yeah. Parakeratinized, okay, we can remember it as parakeratinized pycnotic nuclei, right? So orthokeratinized, no nuclei. And thank you, Abhishek, once again. Yes. Now it will be easy to remember. Yes, P for pycnotic, right. Okay, fine. So parakeratinized pycnotic nuclei, although no, right? So free gingiva, it is parakeratinized containing pycnotic nuclei. The rest is orthokeratinized, no nuclei. Interdental papillae, especially your caul, it is non-keratinized, right? Yes, ortho over 0, yes, we can remember it anyway. Yes, and also since you're saying O, I just got another point here. So these non-keratinocytes are also called as clear cells. Non-keratinocytes are also called as clear cells because you have a cell, you have some nucleus, and around this nucleus there will be a halo or clear area. Hence these are called as clear cells. Yes, Nidhi, that's good. O0 empty. So these non-keratinocytes can also be called as clear cells, right? Because the nucleus is surrounded by a clear halo, right? You can just add up that point as well. Okay? Right. So any other corrections we have? Right. Fine. You have any further questions? Yes, I'll do it. Definitely I'll do it. The picture of board will be in a Google group as well as WhatsApp update group. Yes, Nidhi, I didn't get your question exactly. Which is a cell which remains static? You mean to say tissue fixed macrophages, something of that type? Okay. Immobile, I mean tissue fixed, you mean to say? Yeah. Anyways, Nidhi, drop a mail. We'll have a discussion, right? And also, give me a complete question if possible. Okay? Right. So see you again tomorrow evening, right? We'll have a general discussion and I'll update you regarding FunFest also, right? Okay. Yes. Bye. Take care. Love you all.